everyone, thank you for tuning in. My name is Caitlin McCoy. I work as a library technician at McLevine Library on Shaw Air Force Base, and I am here to talk to you today about children's library programming. I will go over what is programming, why it's important, what type of programs are library appropriate. I'll go over age groups and budget and marketing and actually implementing this programming. So it's really just a brief overview of what I do on a daily basis. So, what is library programming? For me, library programming is fun or educational events that get children and parents excited about going to the library. So from the very beginning, I had to create kind of a mission statement. I wanted to understand why I was doing what I was doing. So the biggest thing for me is library programming brings people in to the library that otherwise wouldn't come to the library. And then once they're in your library, you can tell them all about the amazing stuff that you can offer them. You can tell them about your online resources. You can show them all of the amazing resources they can check out. You can tell them about your other programming and anything else that's going on in your library. The thing is, you have to get them there. So what I have found is running these big, exciting, unusual programs gets people into the library that otherwise wouldn't come on their own. And then you have an opportunity to give them your sales pitch about the rest of your library and what it has to offer. That's the biggest thing. The other thing, especially for children, is library programming keeps them learning after school hours and on weekends and during the summer. It keeps them engaged, and it keeps their curiosity going, and it keeps them learning, and that's really important. But I work on an Air Force base, so all of our programming is free. And that's really important to me too, because since my programming is free, I'm able to offer quality learning opportunities for children and their parents who otherwise wouldn't have these opportunities. And maybe your library programming isn't free, but I think that's one of the biggest things about being able to offer library programming is I feel like I'm offering quality learning opportunities that might not otherwise be available to these parents and their children. Okay, that's why library programming is important. Sorry, I've got my kitty here. He apparently wants to be a part of this video. Okay, what type of programs are library appropriate? Now, the normal person might think story time, book clubs, author signings, anything dealing with books, right? I would say no. Library programming is really just open to anything. You can have STEM events, you can have parties, you can have crafting, you can have just fun, regular events. It really is just up to your imagination, I think. And just as some examples, I'm pretty unusual when it comes to programming. I think that anything that is fun, exciting, possibly educational can be offered in a library. So, just recently, I had a kickboxing demonstration in my library for kids. Our summer reading theme this year is Read for the Win, so everything is sports and competition based. So, I felt it was appropriate to have kickboxing, and I can tell you that brought in 104 patrons. It was exciting. The kids walked away with something, and it brought in people that I have probably never seen before in my library. So that was a fun event. You would probably say it wasn't library related, but I think it was, and it was a lot of fun. I've also done, last year our summer reading program was Read to the Rhythm, so I had loud music programs all summer long, and you really wouldn't think you could offer loud programs in a library, but let me tell you, you can. I'm lucky enough to have a closed off space. My children's library is closed off, and I have shelves that I can push back. So I really have this big open space that's closed off from the main library. So depending on what kind of space you're working with really will determine what kind of programs you can offer. I can tell you though, for some of, we did have a carnival that we had to move inside because it was raining, and we utilized the main library because my children's library is too small. So yes, I have had loud, messy programs in the main part of my library, and that's okay. Our regular patrons are pretty understanding when it comes to children's programming. They know that sometimes it's loud, messy, and they come on another day, or we can put them in another area that's quieter. But that's just my library. It really depends on what your library looks like and who your patrons are, what you're working with. Another thing that you wouldn't think you could have in a library is messy science. Kids love science, and they love messes, and parents don't like messy stuff in their house, my experience. So I offer messy science events quite a bit. In fact, I'm kind of known for messy science. Just the other day, we did soda science. So we blew up balloons with soda and Pop Rocks, and then we did a Diet Coke and Mentos experiment, and if you haven't done that, you totally need to. But I do have a patio that I can work with too, so that's that. But those are programs that you wouldn't think could be in a library, but I've done in a library, and they're totally effective. My main thing is when I offer fun events, I offer fun events that I think will be popular. Like, for example, we had a zombie prom. It's not related to libraries whatsoever. You wouldn't think. It wasn't a learning experience. It was really just fun. It was a way to engage the community. So when my programs aren't necessarily learning experiences, I try to get the community involved, and that's how I can kind of justify some of the other fun things that I've done that aren't necessarily learning events. So any way that I'm getting the community involved, I think is appropriate for a library setting. Okay, so I want to talk to you about age groups. This is something that I learned the hard way, and I didn't start off doing properly. But now I know, and I want you to know because it's very important. Sticking to age groups is very important in your programming. When you program or when you plan a preschool early learning workshop, for example, let's say you do something like that, and you plan your program for 3 to 5-year-olds, you should probably stick to 3 to 5-year-olds. I can tell you from experience, our story time is for 3 to 5-year-olds, and we constantly get I have infants sometimes at my story time. And so what I started doing was I started kind of making my book shorter, and I started implementing different things that would be better for the younger group that was coming. And so I abandoned my older group of children that it was originally planned for. And that's never good. So what I do now is I have a specific age group that I plan things for. I allow children to come that aren't in that age group, but I do let parents know that this program is designed for this age group and therefore might not be appropriate for their kid. Most of them are pretty understanding. Now, for our teen programs, we have to keep our teen programs for 12 to 17-year-olds because otherwise the older teens, we have a lot of younger kids. It took a long time to build up our teen group. So we have a lot of younger kids wanting to come into our teen programs, and we just say no to that completely, because if you start allowing younger kids to come into the programs, then it evolves into a younger children program and not a teen program, and you abandon those older teens, and they will not come anymore. So age groups are very important with library programming. I am not as strict as I could be, but I do think that when you plan a program, one of the main things you need to focus on is what age group is this going to be appropriate for? How strict do we need to be with this age group? And if I do have younger or older children coming, is there a way to differentiate on the spot? What I see a lot of times is with my STEM programming, I do that for 5 to 11-year-olds mainly. I've done preschool stuff before, but I mainly do that for 5 to 11-year-olds. So what I see is families come in, and they have younger siblings. And so what I end up having to do on the spot is differentiate my lesson plan to accommodate these younger children. And sometimes I can do that easily, sometimes I can't, but I've kind of started to kind of roll with it. Some of it's easy, some of it's not. But I do think that sticking with age groups, making sure that the patrons understand the age groups of the programming and sticking with it is very important. Now, if you have to differentiate, then you have to differentiate. But if you let patrons know early on what the age groups are, then you should be good when you go to implement your program. So that's one thing that I want you guys to know now, because I learned that the hard way, and it didn't come as something that was obvious to me, but it is very important. You're probably thinking, this is wonderful, this is great, but we have no money. Well, let me tell you, my experience, when I started planning these children's programs, I was given a $60 monthly budget. What can you do with a $60 monthly budget? Not much, so you would think. What you really need to think about when you look at your budget is how can you offer quality programs with the money that you have. Don't just say, okay, I can't do it because I don't have enough money. You don't necessarily need to bring in presenters or professionals that you have to pay. You don't necessarily need all this different equipment. You really can do the really quality programs with paper and glue. Trust me. What I like to do, because I get a different budget every month, so what I like to do is I look at my number and I'm like, okay, what can I do with this money? I have never cut a program because of a budget. There is always a way. On tight months, with my STEM programming, I will do STEM challenges. So I give them materials that can be toilet paper rolls, cans, paper, newspaper, plastic bottles. I just give them supplies, and either they can pay for give them a budget and let them pay for the supplies, or I give them a set amount of supplies, and they have to build a catapult, or a bridge, or a boat, or something like that, right? I've done that many, many times when our budget was small. So there is definitely a way to do it, to offer quality programs on a small budget. What's great is you can look at Pinterest, DIY, really just do your research. It will take a little bit longer, but in the end, I think it's worth it. So that's cost. We can talk more about that at a later time. So what about marketing? Who are you marketing your programs to? That's really important. Who is your community? For me, my community is Air Force families. So I'm marketing mainly to the moms. That's how my community is built up. Generally speaking, we do have some moms who are active duty Air Force, but generally speaking, the active duty Air Force is the dads. The moms are with the kids at home. So that's who I market towards. I try to make it a social gathering for the moms and a fun event for the kids. And I am marketing more towards families because my community is less likely to be split up. It's usually the family that comes in together. But that's my community. So who are you marketing towards? Do you have nannies bringing the kids in? Are you marketing to the kids because they come there after school on their own? Are you marketing to the parents like I am? Who are you marketing towards? It's important to know who so that you can get that message to them. And also another thing that I've learned, where does your community gather? For me, we have a lot of different Shaw Air Force Base spouses Facebook pages and groups, and so I've joined them all, and I share my library's Facebook posts into that group. And that's how I get a lot of patrons into the library, is being actively involved in their online communities. So that's how I do it. But where does your community gather? Are they gathering in grocery stores? Do you need to market directly to the schools? It's really important for you to know who you're marketing towards, and then you can get your message out there better. And that was a challenge I faced in the beginning because I did not know anything about this new Air Force community, but I quickly became a part of it and understood exactly who to talk to, where to talk to them, and how to get them in the library. Okay, so it's time to implement your programs. You've got a good plan. You're ready to go. Like I've said earlier, you don't need professionals. You can do it DIY. But I haven't always done it DIY. There are some things that I just cannot do on my own. So I do bring in professionals. When I started doing STEM programs, that was very nerve-wracking for me. I'm an English major. I read. I don't do science, technology, engineering, and math. Or so I thought. So I brought in a STEM professional who walked me through it and really served to help me do it on my own. And she was great. You can bring in animal rescues. We've done that before. You can bring in, use the professionals in your community that are free as much as you can. And that way also you're reaching out to your community. And I really think a big part about a library is the community. So utilize the people around you. Find professionals within your community. Market you and your library and network and really just get out there. And you will meet people who can help you. For example, when I did the kickboxing, and I don't do kickboxing, but I am a part of the community enough that I knew several people who either ran businesses or did martial arts on their own. And so it's really about getting out there in the community and finding those professionals. Now, if you want to pay for presenters, by all means, there are plenty of people that come to libraries and present. And sometimes it's worth it. The way that I look at it is, how much does it cost? How many people will come? Is it worth the cost? For example, when I brought in the wildlife rescue, it did cost me money to bring them to my library. But the amount of people that got excited and came to this program was completely worth the money. So it really depends, on how much these professionals and presenters cost. I would also really look into getting volunteers. There are lots of people out there. Like I said, reach out to your community, see who's out there, see who's willing to help you, and make your library programming better. The biggest thing, you need somebody who is excited about library programming. When I get in there and I start doing my programs, I am not this person. I am this silly person who dresses up and gets into it, and the kids love it. I've come to my library as a zombie, going to prom. I've been Belle a couple of times. Joy from Inside Out. You can see your stuffed animal over there. I'm really a big fan of that movie. So you really have to have a passionate person running your programs. And if they're excited, the kids are excited. So that's the biggest thing. Alright guys, so that was my little spiel about library programming. I could go into more details later on. But so that's how you market, that's how you implement programs, that's how you budget your programs. We talked about age groups, we talked about what type of programs are appropriate, which is anything you can think of. We talked about why library programming is important. So get out there, do your thing, and offer wonderful programs for children and their parents. Alright, have fun doing it.